Hi, I'm Tom Ray, and about 7 years ago, I decided to start making webcomics. Since then, I have published books and drawn thousands of pages. But one of the things that hung me up was trying to find the right software to do it. So today, I'm going to start out by showing some basic tips on my favorite piece of drawing software, Medibang Paint. This particular software makes it really easy for anybody who also is just deciding that they want to start drawing webcomics. And the reason that is because this software is specifically meant for webcomic artists. So let's take a look at what it can do. Right here is a recent page for a webcomic that I'm working on called Bobbert and the Monster. And I'm using this as an example to go over some of the key features like layers, brushes, and tools inside the interface for Medibang. Down here on the right is where the layers menu is located. If I click on that, you'll see that I can create infinite amounts of layers, which is actually something not a lot of free software tools will let you do. Let me turn off a few of these layers here to show you what they're for. On this first layer, that's where I created my comic panels. On the second layer, that's where I create my pencil sketches. On the third layer, that's where I colored in the different panels. And then of course, there's my inking layer on top. So I'm able to do all that in Medibang Paint. Then right next to the layers is the palette menu. When I click on this, it shows the different brushes that I can choose from. And it also shows the different color palettes that I can use, or I can just create one myself in the color circle. We've also got another tool panel at the top that shows the eraser tool, the pencil, and of course the bucket fill tool. And of course the handiest one of all, the comic panel making tool. So let's start off with a new page and I'll show you how I would create one of my 4-panel comics that I do. So let's get into the very first and probably most important reason to use Medibang Paint, which is the comic panel creation. So up here on the top, there is the comic panel creation tool. And when I click on that, it shows a menu right above that says Add Comic Panel. So when I click on that, a menu opens up. It basically just says, what kind of border do you want? I'm going to keep it at the default. And what that does is it creates a border around the entire page. And now it is armed for creating comic panels. The easiest way to go about it for my 4-panel comic is I also click on the divide section right there, and I can choose how many panels, rows, and columns I want to use. And for a 4-panel comic, I of course want 2 and 2. So I click that, boom, there you go. My panels are already done. I didn't have to measure anything. I didn't have to size anything. It's already built in. That was one of my favorite finds in this software here. It makes it so easy. Another thing it can do too is, let's say I want more panels. Well, if I undo this and click divide, I can say, what if I want 3 rows? So there you go, I've created 3 rows and now I have 6 panels. But this is all fine and good if I want them all evenly shaped. So let's go back again, and instead of using the divide tool, start with my 4-panel, but let's say I want one of them to be cut in half. Well, with this armed using the comic panel tool, the entire stage is based off of the borders that are there, and I can draw different lines to create different panels. And there you go. I can create as many of these as I want. I can separate them, do them at different angles. If I want to, I can just even create one all by myself and not use the divide tool at all. Let's do this one sideways so the whole page is sideways. That's one of the greatest things about this software because I can literally get started now. My panels are done. So let's go back to the layers tool that I showed you earlier. I of course don't want to draw on the layer that has the panels because that could be problematic later on. I want my pencil sketches that I do to be their own layer. So I create a new color layer and then I select the sprocket tool and name this pencils. Set that, and now I'm on my pencil layer, and then I can click the palette menu option and I will select the pencil brush. I'm going to select the light blue sketching pencil color, and now I can draw my character on the page. So I'm just going to draw a head for now. And there we go. But I realized something. I drew it too big. If I put some text in there, there's not really going to be a lot of room for it. So how can I remedy that? I, of course, could draw it again, but let's use one of the tools just to show what else this can do. There is a lasso tool, and I can select square, circle, or I have a freehand option. So I draw around there, and now that it's selected, I can go down to this other lasso tool menu option and select zoom in, zoom out. Now I have a box around what I selected, and I can resize this drawing to be a little bit smaller. That might be too small. Make it a bit bigger so I could fit some text in there if I need to. Then I hit set, and now my pencil drawing is resized. I hit deselect, and now I can start drawing again. So now that I've finished working on my pencil drawing, I want to create an inking layer. So I open up the layers menu again. I select new color layer and then hit the sprocket. And now I will call this one ink. Now that I'm in that layer, I need to switch brushes and switch the color that I'm using for this inking layer. I hit the palette menu option, and I'm going to scroll down to my sharp pen tool. Another thing too is with these tools, they can be adjusted. So when I have this tool selected, I can hit the sprocket on that, and it pulls up the menu option for the brush. So I can change the opacity of the brush, the width, and also the maximum size of the brush so it can have a nice closing and opening look like you can see here in the example. The brushes are customizable. Now, going back to my pen, I'm going to select black for my ink, and I'm going to start drawing on my character. And I'm just going to do this real quick because I'm just doing it as an example. So now I have my ink layer drawn. Next, I want to color in this webcomic. I open up the layer menu, new color layer, name it color. Now the thing is, I don't want it above my ink drawing, which is where it goes by default. So down here at the bottom of the menu, there's an up and down arrow. So with my color layer selected, I'm going to hit the down arrow, and now it's underneath the inking layer. The other thing too is I no longer need my pencil drawing. So next to the pencil layer, there's an eye, and I can click on that eye and it turns it off, and now the pencil layer is no longer showing. I'm going to choose the palette menu and just pick some colors at random. First, I'm going to start with the background, and I'm going to use a yellow color. To fill the whole square of the background, I'm going to select the shape tool at the top and just draw a square. So now I filled that in, but you'll see that with my webcomic panel underneath, it's getting covered by this box. Well, one way to fix that is on the colors layer, with that selected, at the top of the menu, there's a blending option. And right now it's on normal. If I set that to multiply, what that does is the color that's on that layer, anything that is darker than it is will show through that color. So since I'm using black for my panels and black for my inking, any color that I use on the color layer, the ink and the panels are going to pop through it because I have it set to multiply. Now I'm going to start coloring, and normally the fastest way to do it is with the paint bucket tool. But I have a lot of openings on the inking of the character, so if I use a bucket tool right away, it'll just fill up that whole panel. So I need to close those. Opening my palette, I'm going to choose the hair color. In the hair, what I can do is I can draw with that color to close the openings that are there. Now I can switch to the bucket tool and fill that. But you'll see when I choose the bucket tool, it's got some spaces around the edges where I drew that. Well, that's because this is a pixel drawing. so it's paying attention to where the edges of the pixels are. To fix that, if I undo my bucket fill, go up to the bucket expand option, and I expand it by 2 pixels. Now, when I fill a bucket, it will go 2 pixels beyond where the edge is. So if I fill this again, you'll see that there's no longer that space next to where I drew the edges. But sometimes it also gets a little tighter. So I'll need to fill in those gaps where it gets kind of tight and the 2 pixels can't fit in. Do a blue shirt on them, just to show you where you can fill in the bucket. So most people, when they draw, don't have as many gaps in their drawings as I do, but you can just use the bucket tool and fill out the whole panel that way. So I want to go back to the pencil layer and show an example of some of the guides and other rulers and shape tools that are inside of Medibang Paint that help me with drawing. Let's say I want to draw a window. So if my character is standing here and he's looking out a window, I can freehand an idea of a window that he's at, which is perfectly fine for the sketching part of this. But now when I get to the inking layer, I want to draw this window, but if I freehand it, it's not really straight. I mean, this could be fine if I did it like that and just kind of freeformed it. That's perfectly fine, but let's say I want to be a bit more exact. And up at the top here, we have these snap guides. One of them, you turn it on and it's basically the entire screen becomes, you can either draw straight down or straight across. So with this selected, I can just pick an area and draw. And if I wanted to go straight across, I could do that. And that's what that guide does. But this one's at a bit of an angle. So I have my straight line that I drew there, and I can switch to a perspective tool. In this perspective tool, I select a menu option here and move the snap, and I can show what direction I want this to go. There's one perspective, and then I'll say this one's the other one. Now it has created a perspective that is following the 2 directions I told it to go. So I can start drawing a straight line there and a straight line there, all within the perspective. And I can even draw the angle underneath to show that. And I can turn on the up and down guide again, and now I've filled that in. Switch back to the perspective and do the middle order there. And those are some of the guide tools that are pre-built into Medibang Paint, and they just turn on and off like that. And another thing is there is a circular guide that you can use too, and I use this to draw my word balloons. So let's say we go back to this area here, and I can choose this panel, size it the way I want, and now I have an oval that's above my character's head. Select the erase tool, cut that out, and now I've drawn a little word bubble. Go to the color layer, select white, and now I have made a word balloon. So let's say that this is a beautifully finished webcomic that I'm ready to put on my website and other social media outlets. All I have to do is select these 3 lines down here that opens up a menu option and choose export PNG or JPEG files. And I can do just that, export a PNG or JPEG file. And then that is ready to share on all of my different sites and places that I like to post webcomics. And so there you go. That is a quick and easy way to start using Medibang Paint to start doing webcomics right now. One of the greatest features being the comic panel creation tool. Plus, it can create multiple layers, and it's got different coloring options, different guide options, and it can export in a high quality format for PNG and JPEG or export for the web. I hope that this was helpful. If you're looking for a way to create webcomics, or if you just wanted to get started and really didn't know where to begin, this software is a great free tool to download and start drawing right now. If you enjoyed that, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and I'll be back with more tips later on. Thanks so much.